Captain Jake Morrison stared at the blue glow of his ship's control panel. The deep space research vessel New Horizon had been traveling for 3 weeks through empty space. His crew of 12 scientists and engineers worked quietly around him, checking instruments and running tests on rock samples from distant planets. "Captain," called Lisa Campbell from her science station, "I'm getting a strange signal on the emergency channel." Jake walked over to her workstation. Lisa had been his chief science officer for 5 years. She was smart and careful, never one to panic over small problems. "What kind of signal?" he asked. "It's a distress call from Kepler 442b. The mining colony there." Lisa's face looked worried. "But it's old, maybe 2 days old, and it cuts off suddenly." Jake knew about Kepler 442b. The colony had about 800 people working the uranium mines there. It was one of humanity's most important mining operations in the Outer Rim territories. "Set course for Kepler 442b, Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." The New Horizon changed direction and picked up speed. In the darkness of space, no one could see them coming. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Frank Stevens sat in his office at Space Command headquarters. The walls were covered with star maps and battle plans from the last war with the Centauri rebels. But that war had ended 20 years ago. These days, his biggest problem was keeping the peace between Earth's colonies and the alien traders who visited human space. His aide, Katie Walsh, knocked on his door and entered. She was young for an intelligence officer, but she had a sharp mind for details that others missed. "Admiral, we have a problem," Katie said. She placed a data pad on his desk. "We've lost contact with 4 mining colonies in the past month. Kepler 442b is the latest one." Frank picked up the data pad and read the reports. Each colony had gone silent without warning. No distress calls, no explanation, just empty space where once there had been busy mining operations. "Pirates?" Frank asked. "I don't think so," Katie replied. "Pirates take what they can carry and leave. These colonies were stripped completely clean. Every building, every piece of equipment, even the landing pads were gone." Frank frowned. He had been in the Space Navy for 30 years. He had seen pirate attacks, rebel raids, and equipment failures. This was something different. What about our alien friends? The Zephyrians? The Zephyrians had made contact with humanity 53 years ago. They came in huge ships that made Earth's best battleships look like toys. But they said they came in peace. They wanted to trade technology for raw materials. Over the years, they had become humanity's most important trading partners. "The Zephyrian ambassador says they know nothing about the missing colonies," Katie said. "But they did offer to provide security services for our remaining mining operations, for a price." Frank didn't like the sound of that. In his experience, people who offered to solve your problems for money were often the ones causing the problems in the first place. "Double the patrols in the Outer Rim," he ordered, "and keep an eye on our Zephyrian friends." Back in space, the New Horizon arrived. At Kepler 442b, after 2 days of hard travel, Jake and his crew looked out at what should have been a busy mining colony. Instead, they saw an empty planet with huge scars in the ground where the mines used to be. "Take us down," Jake ordered. The ship landed near what had once been the main settlement. Jake suited up and took a team outside to investigate. The colony was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. The ground was smooth and clean, as if giant machines had scraped away every trace of human presence. Lisa ran her scanner over the empty ground. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange energy readings. This signature doesn't match any human technology." "I know." She showed Jake the readings on her scanner. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Earth's databases. They were too organized, too precise to be natural. "Collect samples," Jake ordered. "I want to know what did this." While his team worked, Jake walked to the edge of what had been the main mine shaft. It went down 3 kilometers into the planet's crust. Now it was filled with smooth rock as if it had never existed. His radio crackled. "Captain, you need to see this," called Pete Johnson, one of his engineers. Jake found Pete standing near a small hill about a kilometer from the landing site. But as Jake got closer, he realized it wasn't a natural hill. It was made of metal, and composite materials covered with dirt and rocks to hide it. "It's some kind of monitoring station," Pete explained. The power cells are still active. It's been watching this place. Lisa scanned the hidden station with her instruments. The technology is definitely not human, but it's not like anything in our alien contact database either. Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. Someone had been watching the human colony. Someone with technology that could strip an entire mining operation from the planet's surface without leaving a trace. Can we access their computer systems? He asked. I can try, Lisa said. She connected her portable computer to the alien station. After a few minutes, she managed to break through their security. What she found made her face go pale. Captain, this station has been here for 15 years. It's been recording everything. The colonists did. Every ship that came and went, every person who lived here, even their daily routines. Who built it? Lisa's hands shook as she read the data. The identification codes match Zephyrian technology, but these are military models, not the civilian versions they've shown us in trade meetings. Jake realized they were in serious danger. If this was a Zephyrian military operation, then humanity had been betrayed by their supposed allies. Worse, if they had been watching Kepler 442b for 15 years, they were probably watching other human colonies too. Download everything you can, he ordered. We need to get this information back to Earth. As Lisa worked to copy the alien files, her scanner started beeping with alarm signals. Captain, I'm detecting 3 large ships approaching. They're moving fast. Jake looked up at the sky. He could see 3 bright lights getting bigger. The ships were huge, each one larger than anything in Earth's space navy, and they were coming straight for the new horizon. Everyone back to the ship now, Jake shouted. His crew ran for their lives. They reached the new horizon just as the alien ships entered the planet's atmosphere. Jake could see that they were definitely Zephyrian vessels, but they looked different from the peaceful trading ships that visited Earth. These ships had weapons. Get us out of here, Jake ordered his pilot. The new horizon lifted off and accelerated towards space. Behind them, energy beams from the Zephyrian ships hit the ground where they had been standing. The beams were so powerful that they turned rock into glowing plasma. As they escaped into deep space, Jake looked at the data Lisa had downloaded from the monitoring station. The files contained detailed plans for attacks on human colonies throughout the Outer Rim. But the most frightening part was a list of targets that included every major human settlement in the galaxy. At the top of the list, marked with a symbol that meant priority target, was Earth itself. Jake realized that humanity was not alone in the galaxy, but they were no longer safe either. The Zephyrians had been preparing for war while pretending to be friends. And now, with their secret discovered, the real battle was about to begin. The new horizon raced through space toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, the Zephyrian ships did not pursue. They had what they came for. The last human colony in the sector was gone, and soon the rest would follow. 6 months after Jake Morrison's discovery at Kepler 442b, the Zephyrian Empire dropped all pretense of friendship. Their massive war fleet appeared at the edge of human space without warning. The ships were enormous, each one the size of a small city, and they moved with deadly purpose toward the Centauri system. Admiral Frank Stevens stood on the bridge of his flagship, the battleship Liberty. Around him, his officers worked frantically to coordinate the defense of humanity's most important colony system. But Stevens knew they were facing impossible odds. His entire fleet consisted of 47 ships. The Zephyrian force had over 200 vessels. All ships form defensive formation around Proxima Centauri, Stevens ordered into his communication system. Protect the colony at all costs. The human ships moved into position, their weapons powered and ready. The crews were brave, but Stevens could see the fear in their eyes. Everyone knew what had happened to the missing colonies. Now it was their turn to face the aliens who had been pretending to be their friends. The Zephyrian ships came forward like a dark storm. Their hulls were black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange energy patterns flickered across their surfaces. When they opened fire, their weapons created beams of pure destruction that could cut through human ships like paper. The first human ship to die was the destroyer Falcon. A single Zephyrian beam hit it in the center, and the ship simply disappeared. In a flash of light, there was no explosion, no debris. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Return fire, Stevens shouted. The human fleet fired everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, and particle beams struck the Zephyrian ships. But the alien vessels had shields that absorbed the attacks without damage. The human weapons were like rocks, thrown at a mountain. Within 2 hours, Stevens had lost 35 ships. The Zephyrians had lost none. The survivors retreated toward Proxima Centauri, hoping to make a final stand near the planet's defense stations. On the surface of Proxima Centauri, Marine Colonel Danny Rodriguez prepared his troops for invasion. The planet held 4 million colonists, and it was his job to protect them. Rodriguez had fought in 3 wars and seen every kind of combat. But as he watched the Zephyrian ships descend through the atmosphere, he knew this would be different. "Remember, your training," Rodriguez told his soldiers over the radio. "These aliens are tough, but they can be killed. We've seen the weapon test results from the samples Captain Morrison brought back. Hit them with everything you have." The Zephyrian landing craft were massive, each one carrying thousands of biomechanical soldiers. These were not like the peaceful Zephyrians who had visited Earth for trade meetings. These creatures were built for war, with armor that covered their entire bodies and weapons that fired energy blasts. The first battle took place at New Angeles, the planet's capital city. Rodriguez positioned his Marines behind barricades and in tall buildings, using the city's structure to slow down the alien advance. When the Zephyrian soldiers appeared, the humans opened fire with everything they had. The human bullets bounced off the alien armor like raindrops. The energy weapons did some damage, but not enough. The Zephyrian soldiers moved forward steadily, their own weapons cutting down Marines with terrible efficiency. "Fall back to the second line," Rodriguez ordered. His beautiful plan was falling apart. The aliens were too strong, too well protected, but he refused to give up. The battle for New Angeles lasted 3 days. Rodriguez and his Marines fought for every street, every building, every room. They used explosives to bring down buildings on the alien soldiers. They set traps and ambushes. They fought with courage that would have made their ancestors proud, but courage was not enough. By the end of the 3rd day, Rodriguez had lost 90% of his men. The aliens controlled the entire city except for a small area around the government building. The colonel made the hardest decision of his life. "All remaining units, retreat to the underground tunnels," he ordered. "We'll continue the fight from there." Rodriguez and 200 surviving Marines escaped into the old mining tunnels beneath the city. Behind them, the Zephyrians herded the civilian population into large camps. The aliens did not kill the humans. Instead, they seemed to be sorting them into different groups for unknown purposes. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Dr. Amy Foster worked desperately in her laboratory. She had been studying the alien technology samples that Morrison's team had recovered. The government had given her unlimited resources and told her to find a way to fight back. "The quantum manipulation technology is incredible," she told her assistant as she examined a piece of Zephyrian equipment under a powerful microscope. "They can change the basic structure of matter at the atomic level. That's how they stripped those colonies so completely." But Foster had found something else in her analysis. The alien technology had a weakness. All of their systems operated on the same quantum frequency. If she could find a way to disrupt that frequency, she might be able to damage their weapons and shields. "We need more samples," she told her team, "and we need to understand how their power systems work." The problem was getting more alien technology to study. The Zephyrians had destroyed almost every human ship that had fought them. The few pieces of wreckage that survived were heavily damaged and hard to analyze. On Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath the White House. The reports coming in from the Centauri system were devastating. Admiral Stevens had lost his entire fleet. The planet was under alien occupation. And now, intelligence reports suggested that the Zephyrian main fleet was heading toward Earth. "How long do we have?" Carter asked Katie Walsh, who had been promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer. "Based on their speed, maybe 2 weeks," Katie replied. "But they might come faster if they think we're preparing defenses." Carter had already activated the Exodus Protocol. Non-essential personnel were being evacuated to hidden bases in the outer solar system. The military was preparing Earth's orbital defense platforms and ground-based weapon systems, but everyone knew it would not be enough. The Zephyrians had proven that human technology was decades behind theirs. Earth's defenses had been built to fight other humans, not aliens with quantum-powered weapons. "What about the colonies in the other systems?" Carter asked. "We've lost contact with 12 more colonies in the past week," Katie reported. "The pattern is the same every time. The Zephyrians appear, strip the planet of resources, and take the population." Carter felt the weight of humanity's survival on her shoulders. In just 6 months, the human race had gone from being a growing interstellar civilization to a species fighting for its existence. The end came sooner than expected. The Zephyrian fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, just 10 days after the fall of Centauri. Their ships were even larger than the ones that had attacked Stevens's fleet. The lead vessel was the size of a small moon, and it bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. Earth's orbital defense platforms opened fire as soon as the aliens came within range. Hundreds of missiles and energy beams struck the Zephyrian ships. For a moment, Carter allowed herself to hope that Earth's defenses might hold. Then the aliens fired back. A single beam from their flagship struck the Mars colonial complex and destroyed it instantly. 2 million colonists died in the flash of light. The message was clear: surrender or watch your worlds burn. Carter had no choice. With tears in her eyes, she ordered all military units to stand down. The Zephyrian ships moved into orbit around Earth, and their landing craft began descending toward the planet's surface. The conquest of humanity was complete. The Zephyrians had won the war before most humans even knew it had started. But in the ruins of the Centauri system, in the hidden laboratories on Earth's moon, and in the underground tunnels beneath New Angeles, the seeds of resistance were already beginning to grow. The aliens had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. 2 years had passed since the Zephyrians conquered Earth. The beautiful blue planet now looked like a construction site. Massive alien machines stripped mountains bare, digging deep into the Earth's crust for rare metals. The oceans were being drained and filtered for minerals. Entire forests disappeared overnight, processed into materials for the alien war machine. Jake Morrison floated in the cold darkness of space, looking out at the stars from his hidden base inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The rock drifted in the Kuiper Belt, far from the inner planets where Zephyrian patrols searched for human survivors. His rebel fleet consisted of 12 ships, all of them damaged and patched together from salvaged parts. "Captain, we're getting a message from Rodriguez on Earth," reported Ben Taylor, his communications officer. Ben had been a cargo pilot before the war. Now he was one of the few people who knew how to modify human radio equipment to avoid Zephyrian detection. Jake moved to the communication station. The message was short and coded, but he understood its meaning. Colonel Rodriguez was still alive, still fighting from the underground tunnels beneath New Angeles. The resistance on Earth was growing, but they needed weapons that could actually hurt the aliens. "Any word from Dr. Foster?" Jake asked. "Nothing for 3 weeks," Ben replied. "Her last message said she was close to a breakthrough, but then we lost contact." Jake worried about Amy Foster. The scientist had been working alone in a secret laboratory hidden in Europa's ice caves. If the Zephyrians had found her, humanity's best hope for fighting back would be gone. On Earth, Colonel Rodriguez crouched in a maintenance tunnel 50 meters beneath the ruins of New Angeles. The tunnel had once carried water pipes for the city. Now, it was home to 300 human fighters who refused to surrender to the aliens. "We hit their supply convoy again last night," reported Sergeant Lisa Park, one of his squad leaders. "Killed 12 of their bio-soldiers and destroyed 2 of their hover trucks." Rodriguez nodded, but he felt no satisfaction. For every small victory, the aliens struck back harder. Last week they had captured 50 civilians from the refugee camps and executed them in the city square. The message was clear. Every attack by the resistance would cost innocent lives. "What's our ammunition situation?" he asked. "Bad," Park replied. "We're down to our last few hundred rounds. The improvised explosives are working better, but we need more materials to make them." Rodriguez had learned hard lessons about fighting the Zephyrians. Human bullets could not penetrate their armor, but explosions could knock them down. Fire didn't hurt them, but it damaged their sensors. Electricity disrupted their communication systems for short periods. The resistance fighters had become experts at using the aliens' own tactics against them. They set traps in the rubble of destroyed buildings. They used hit-and-run attacks to strike quickly and disappear. They had learned to move through the city's underground systems like ghosts, but they were losing the war of numbers. Every month, more resistance fighters died or were captured. The Zephyrians brought in fresh troops while the humans could not replace their losses. "We need better weapons," Rodriguez told his officers during their weekly meeting in an abandoned subway station. "These aliens can be hurt, but not with what we have now." Unknown to Rodriguez, help was closer than he thought. Deep beneath Europa's frozen surface, Dr. Amy Foster had been working 18 hours a day for 2 years. Her laboratory was a maze of cables, computers, and alien technology that she had slowly collected from crash sites and abandoned Zephyrian equipment. "The quantum frequency disruption is working," she told herself as she ran another test on her prototype weapon. But the power requirements are enormous. Foster had discovered that all Zephyrian technology operated on linked quantum frequencies. Their weapons, shields, communication systems, and even their biomechanical soldiers all used the same basic quantum signature. If she could build a device that disrupted this frequency, it would be like jamming their entire technological system. Problem was power. The quantum disruptor needed more energy than a human power cell could provide. But Foster had found the solution in the aliens' own technology. She could use their power systems against them. "Computer, run simulation 47, she commanded. The computer showed her a 3-dimensional model of a Zephyrian biosoldier. When the quantum disruptor activated, the alien's armor and weapons stopped working. The creature became vulnerable to conventional human weapons. "It works in simulation," Foster said. "Now I need to test it in real combat." Meanwhile, Katie Walsh had been busy building a spy network among the human populations in the alien work camps. The Zephyrians had divided the surviving humans into 3 groups: skilled workers who maintained their equipment, laborers who did heavy construction work, and what they called surplus population, who were kept in holding areas for unknown purposes. Katie worked as a translator in the main administration center in what used to be New York City. The aliens needed humans who could speak both languages to manage their human workforce. This job gave her access to Zephyrian computer systems and communication networks. "The aliens are having problems," she reported in a coded message to Jake Morrison. "Their messages talk about supply shortages and equipment failures. They're also dealing with rebellions on other planets." This was the best news Jake had heard in months. The Zephyrian Empire was not as strong as it appeared. If they were fighting wars on multiple fronts, they might not be able to send reinforcements to Earth. "What kind of rebellions?" Jake asked in his reply message. "The Centauri survivors have formed a guerrilla army in the asteroid fields," Katie reported. "There are also uprisings on at least 6 other conquered worlds. The aliens are calling it a multi-sector insurgency problem." Jake realized that humanity's fight had inspired other species to rebel against Zephyrian rule. The aliens had conquered dozens of worlds over the centuries, always believing that superior technology guaranteed victory, but they had never faced the kind of determined resistance that humans were showing. The turning point came when Dr. Foster finally completed her quantum disruptor weapons. She managed to send a coded message to Jake Morrison with the technical specifications and manufacturing instructions. "The devices can be built using salvaged alien components," her message explained. "Each disruptor has enough power for about 10 minutes of operation, but that should be enough for a small unit to destroy a Zephyrian patrol." Jake immediately sent copies of Foster's plans to Rodriguez on Earth and to resistance cells throughout human space. For the first time since the invasion began, humans would have weapons that could actually hurt their enemies. The first field test took place in the ruins of Chicago. Rodriguez and 20 of his best fighters used Foster's prototype disruptors to ambush a Zephyrian supply convoy. When the quantum disruptors activated, the alien soldiers' armor and weapons stopped working. The biomechanical creatures stumbled around helplessly as human bullets finally found their targets. "It works," Rodriguez shouted over his radio. "The alien tech is down. All units attack now." The battle lasted only 10 minutes, but it was the first clear victory for human forces since the war began. 12 Zephyrian soldiers died, and the humans captured 2 hover trucks full of alien equipment. News of the victory spread through the resistance network like wildfire. On Earth, in the asteroid fields, and on hidden bases throughout the solar system, human fighters began building Foster's quantum disruptors and planning their own attacks. The Zephyrians had made a fatal mistake. They had believed that their advanced technology made them invincible, but they had never faced an enemy that could adapt, learn, and turn their own weapons against them. The war was far from over, but for the first time in 2 years, humans had real hope. The aliens could be beaten. And now, with Foster's weapons and growing resistance networks, the fight back was about to begin. 1 year after the first successful quantum disruptor test, the war had changed completely. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, a converted cargo ship called Freedom's Edge. The vessel looked like junk from the outside, with patched hull plates and mismatched weapon systems. But inside, it carried the most advanced human technology ever built, including Dr. Foster's latest quantum weapons. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer, Carl Davis. "Zephyrian supply ship, carrying raw materials from the Mercury mining operation." Jake studied the alien vessel on his screen. It was 3 times larger than his ship and heavily armed. 6 months ago, attacking it would have been suicide. Now, with quantum disruptors, it was just another mission. "All ships, prepare for attack," Jake ordered over the fleet communication system. His rebel fleet had grown to 37 vessels, all of them crewed by survivors from destroyed colonies. "Remember, hit their shields first, then target their engines." The human ships came out of hiding behind an asteroid and opened fire. The quantum disruptors created invisible waves of energy that disrupted the alien ship's defensive systems. When the Zephyrian shields failed, human missiles and energy weapons tore through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. The alien vessel tried to fight back, but its weapons systems were offline. Within minutes, the supply ship was drifting, helplessly in space, its crew either dead or unconscious. "Search and salvage team, move in," Jake commanded. "Take everything useful and plant the charges." This had become the standard tactic for human raiders. Strike fast, take what they needed, and destroy what was left to deny it to the enemy. The Zephyrians had responded by increasing their patrols and adding more ships to each convoy. But the humans adapted faster than the aliens could react. On Earth, Colonel Rodriguez led the largest resistance operation since the invasion began. The Battle of Chicago had become a legend among human fighters. For the first time, they were not just surviving but actually winning battles against their occupiers. Intelligence reports that the main Zephyrian command center is in the old Willis Tower, Rodriguez told his assembled squad leaders. They met in an abandoned subway tunnel that had been converted into a planning room. "If we can take it out, we'll disrupt their operations across the entire North American continent." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. The Willis Tower was heavily defended by Zephyrian forces and their biomechanical soldiers. But Rodriguez had learned that the aliens had one critical weakness. They relied too much on their technology and not enough on basic military tactics. "We'll use the quantum disruptors to take down their defenses," explained Captain Maria Santos, one of Rodriguez's best officers. "Then we hit them with everything we have while their systems are down." Rodriguez had divided his forces into 12 teams, each one equipped with Foster's latest weapons. The teams would attack from different directions using the city's ruins to hide their movements until the last moment. The attack began at dawn. Human fighters emerged from sewers, abandoned buildings, and subway tunnels all around the Willis Tower. The quantum disruptors activated simultaneously, creating a massive wave of disruption energy that shut down every piece of Zephyrian technology in a 6-block radius. The alien defenders found themselves fighting with weapons that no longer worked and armor that provided no protection. The biomechanical soldiers, cut off from their command signals, wandered around confused and disoriented. "All teams advance," Rodriguez shouted over his radio. The human fighters poured into the building, using explosives to blast through walls and stairs to reach the upper floors. The Zephyrians tried to fight back, but without their technological advantages, they were no match for determined human soldiers who knew every corner of their own city. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, Rodriguez and his fighters had captured the entire command center and taken dozens of alien prisoners. More importantly, they had seized computer equipment that contained vital intelligence about Zephyrian operations throughout the solar system. Meanwhile, Dr. Foster had been working on an even more ambitious project in her hidden laboratory. The quantum disruptors were effective, but they only worked for short periods and required constant maintenance. She needed something more powerful and longer lasting. "If I can amplify the quantum disruption field," she told her assistant, Dr. Kevin Park, "I might be able to create a weapon that can destroy entire Zephyrian ships." The quantum bomb was her most dangerous creation yet. It used the same principles as the disruptors, but concentrated into a single massive burst of energy. When detonated near a Zephyrian vessel, it would cause a cascade failure in all the ship's quantum-based systems. "The explosion won't destroy the ship directly," Foster explained to Jake Morrison during a secure video call, "but it will cause every piece of alien technology on board to stop working permanently. The ship will be dead in space, and the crew will be trapped inside." Jake understood the implications immediately. One quantum bomb could disable a Zephyrian capital ship that would normally require his entire fleet to destroy. But the bombs were incredibly difficult to build and required rare materials that could only be found in alien technology. "How many can you make?" Jake asked. "With the materials we have now, maybe 3, Foster replied. "But if we can capture more alien equipment, I might be able to build a dozen." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Katie Walsh, still working undercover in the Zephyrian Administration Center, discovered that a major alien fleet was being assembled in Earth's orbit. The fleet included 5 capital ships and was preparing to launch a massive offensive against the rebel bases in the outer solar system. "They're calling it Operation Final Solution," Katie reported in her coded message. "They plan to hunt down and destroy every human resistance cell in the next 6 months." Jake realized this was humanity's moment of greatest danger and greatest opportunity. If the Zephyrian fleet succeeded in its mission, the resistance would be crushed forever. But if they could destroy the fleet while it was still assembling, they would strike a blow that the aliens might never recover from. "All units, this is Morrison," he broadcast to every resistance cell in the solar system. "Prepare for Operation Starburst. We're going to hit them where it hurts most." The plan required perfect timing and the commitment of nearly every human fighter still alive. Foster's quantum bombs would be delivered by suicide missions, with volunteer pilots flying small ships directly into the alien capital ships. The bombs would detonate inside the enemy vessels, destroying them from within. Rodriguez volunteered to lead one of the attack teams. "I've been fighting these monsters for 3 years, he told Jake during the final planning meeting. "If this is our last chance, I want to be part of it." The attack began with diversions. Human fighters struck Zephyrian installations on Earth and Mars, drawing attention away from the main fleet in orbit. While the aliens responded to these attacks, Jake's ships moved into position around Earth. The quantum bombs worked exactly as Foster had predicted. When they detonated inside the Zephyrian capital ships, the massive vessels went dark and began drifting helplessly in space. Without their shields and weapons, they became easy targets for human missiles and energy weapons. "Target destroyed," reported one pilot after another as the alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the battle was over, the Zephyrian fleet had been completely destroyed. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had won a major space battle against their enemies. The victory came at a high cost, with many brave pilots giving their lives to deliver the quantum bombs, but it proved that the aliens could be beaten. News of the victory spread throughout human space and beyond. On occupied worlds across the galaxy, Other species heard that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been defeated in battle by the supposedly primitive humans. Rebellions began to break out on a dozen worlds as enslaved populations realized that their oppressors were not invincible. The war was far from over, but the tide had finally turned. Humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. 1 year after the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet above Earth, the war had spread across the entire galaxy. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the battleship Human Spirit. The ship was built from captured alien technology and human engineering, creating the most powerful vessel humanity had ever constructed. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 3 more Zephyrian outposts," reported his communications officer. Jake still felt strange being called Admiral, but his rebel fleet had grown to over 300 ships, making him the commander of humanity's largest military force. "Tell them the same thing we told the others," Jake replied. "Complete withdrawal from human space and full reparations for the damage they caused. No negotiations." The balance of power had shifted dramatically. Dr. Foster's quantum weapons had proven so effective that Zephyrian forces could no longer maintain their technological advantage. More importantly, the alien empire was falling apart from within, as rebellions erupted on dozens of conquered worlds. On Earth, Colonel Rodriguez had been promoted to general and was leading the liberation of the planet's major cities. The campaign to retake London had just ended in complete victory, with Zephyrian forces abandoning their fortified positions and retreating to their remaining bases. "The aliens are running scared," Rodriguez told his officers during a strategy meeting in the newly liberated British Parliament building. "Our intelligence reports show that they're pulling troops from other star systems to defend their core worlds." The Battle of London had become another legend in the growing list of human victories. Rodriguez had used a combination of quantum disruptors and conventional explosives to destroy what the Zephyrians had thought was an impregnable fortress. The victory proved that humans could defeat the aliens anywhere, not just in surprise attacks, but in direct assault on defended positions. "What's our next target?" asked General Susan Lee, who commanded the Asian resistance forces. "Berlin," Rodriguez replied, pointing to a map of Europe. "The Zephyrians have their European command center there. If we take it, we'll control everything, from the Atlantic to the Urals." Meanwhile, Dr. Foster had achieved another breakthrough in her research. Working with a team of scientists from around the world, she had developed what she called the quantum cascade bomb. This weapon was 1,000 times more powerful than her earlier quantum bombs and could destroy entire Zephyrian fleets with a single detonation. "The cascade effect spreads from ship to ship," she explained to Jake during a secure video conference. "One bomb can disable every Zephyrian vessel within a 50-kilometer radius." But Foster had discovered something even more important while studying captured alien prisoners. The Zephyrian Empire was not a unified government, but a collection of different alien species held together by military force and shared technology. The ruling Zephyrians were actually a minority, controlling dozens of other species through fear and superior weapons. "If we can turn their subject species against them," Foster told Jake, "we might not need to fight a long war. The Empire could collapse on its own." Katie Walsh had been working on exactly that problem. Now serving as Director of Alien Affairs, she had been in secret communication with representatives from several species that the Zephyrians had conquered centuries ago. These species had been waiting for a chance to rebel, and humanity's success had given them hope. "The Altarians have agreed to join our alliance," Katie reported during a meeting of human leadership. "They control 3 star systems and have a fleet of 800 ships. The Rigelians are also interested, but they want guarantees that we won't treat them the way the Zephyrians did." Jake understood their concerns. Humanity needed allies, but they also needed to prove that they were different from their former oppressors. The solution was the Treaty of Free Worlds, a document that established equal rights for all species and banned the conquest of inhabited planets. "We're not trying to build an empire," Jake announced during a broadcast to the entire galaxy. "We're trying to create a community where every species can live in peace and freedom." The message had a powerful impact. Within weeks, 12 different species had joined the human-led alliance. The Zephyrian Empire found itself fighting a war on over 50 fronts as their former subjects rose up in rebellion. But the Zephyrians were not ready to surrender. Their supreme commander, a massive creature called the Overmind, decided to make one final attempt to crush the human rebellion. If they could destroy Earth and kill the human leadership, the other rebellions might collapse. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive Zephyrian fleet approaching the solar system, reported Jake's sensor officer. Over 500 ships, including their flagship. The Zephyrian flagship was a monster, larger than a small moon and armed with weapons that could destroy planets. It had never been defeated in battle, and its presence alone had been enough to force dozens of worlds to surrender without fighting. How long until they arrive? Jake asked. 72 hours at their current speed. Jake knew this would be the final battle of the war. If humanity won, the Zephyrian Empire would be finished. If they lost, Earth would be destroyed and the galaxy would remain under alien rule for centuries to come. Send word to all our allies, Jake ordered. This is where we make our stand. The greatest space battle in galactic history took place at the edge of the solar system. Jake commanded a combined fleet of over 800 ships from 20 different species. The Zephyrians had more ships, but they were fighting alone while humanity fought alongside friends. The battle began with long-range missile exchanges as both fleets approached each other. The Zephyrian weapons were still powerful, but human. Shields had been improved using captured alien technology. More importantly, every human ship carried quantum cascade bombs that could destroy multiple enemy vessels with each detonation. All ships execute attack pattern Delta, Jake commanded as the fleets closed to combat range. The human alliance ships spread out in a complex formation that confused the Zephyrian commanders. They had been expecting humans to fight like they always had, in straight lines and simple formations. Instead, Jake used tactics learned from 3 years of guerrilla warfare, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The turning point came when Rodriguez, commanding a strike force of fast attack ships, managed to penetrate the Zephyrian formation and reach their flagship. His ships carried Foster's most powerful quantum cascade bombs, weapons that could disable even the massive Overmind vessel. "This is for every human who died during the occupation," Rodriguez said as his ship dove toward the alien flagship. The explosion was visible across the solar system. When the cascade bombs detonated against the Zephyrian flagship, the quantum disruption spread through the entire enemy fleet. Within minutes, over 300 alien ships were drifting helplessly in space, their crews trapped inside dead vessels. "Enemy fleet is disabled," reported Jake's tactical officer. "They're sending surrender signals." The capture of the Overmind marked the end of Zephyrian resistance. With their supreme leader in human custody and their fleet destroyed, the remaining alien forces throughout the galaxy laid down their weapons and requested terms for surrender. 3. Treaty of Sol was signed 6 months later on Earth, with representatives from over 40 species in attendance. The Zephyrian Empire was officially dissolved, and its former territories were reorganized into the Galactic Federation of Free Worlds. Humanity, despite being one of the youngest species in the galaxy, was chosen to lead the new government because of their role in liberating the galaxy from Zephyrian rule. Jake Morrison, now Admiral of the Galactic Defense Fleet, stood on the observation deck of the orbital station that served as the Federation's capital. Through the large windows, he could see ships from dozens of different worlds working together to build a better future. "Hard to believe it's over," said Colonel Rodriguez, who had joined him on the observation deck. "The war is over," Jake replied. "But our real work is just beginning. We have to prove that different species can live together in peace." 10 years later, the galaxy had been transformed. The Galactic Federation had grown to include over 100 species, all working together to explore new worlds and develop new technologies. The quantum cascade weapons had been banned by treaty, but the technology had been adapted for peaceful purposes like faster-than-light communication and planetary defense. Dr. Foster, now the Federation's chief scientist, had established research stations throughout the galaxy where humans and aliens worked side by side to push the boundaries of knowledge. The horrors of the Zephyrian occupation had been replaced by an age of cooperation and discovery. Humanity had not only survived their greatest trial, but had emerged as leaders in creating a better galaxy for all species. They had proven that courage, determination, and the willingness to fight for what was right could overcome any obstacle. The galaxy would never forget the species that had refused to surrender, even when facing impossible odds. Humanity had struck back, and in doing so had freed every world that had suffered under Zephyrian rule.